Australians are sick and tired of hearing this rhetoric, this shtick about power prices are falling when that's clearly not being reflected in their bills. What is going on here?
Well, we're facing a crisis of ideology and a crisis of competence when it comes to energy policy. So the starting point is we have this renewable energy target by 2030, which is patently clear is impossible to meet. Even if we were to meet it, it would be experiment in terms of does it work and is it viable? Now, the problem with having such a ridiculously ambitious target is not just that the target can't be met, but all the central planning that is being done by the regulatory bodies presume that that target is going to be met. And what then happens is, as we don't meet that target, we haven't got a plan B and a plan C to deal with what's actually happening, as opposed to what a few members of parliament kind of delude themselves into what they want to happen. And then you end up with insufficient investments in our grid, and that results in increased volatility. And Australia now faces the highest volatility in energy prices of any OECD country in the world, and it results in more unreliability. And that then flows through to three key sectors of our economy. The first one being the industrial manufacturing base. We've already seen significant closures and thousands of blue-collar jobs lost over the last few years. The second one is we feel it at home, where obviously bills have continued to rise. And lastly, and I think this is perhaps one of the most underappreciated areas, is our national security and the government's priority technology list in things like cybersecurity, quantum computing, and artificial intelligence all actually depend on our energy sector. And we're seeing our national security agenda and our technology agenda being held back and let down by our energy policy makers, and the future of Australia's economy and security is actually at stake here. It's not even just about our bills at home.
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting thing. I wanted to get into that a bit because one of the arguments Labor was making during the last federal election campaign was that their plan provided for more gigawatts going into the grid than the coalition's policy, suggesting that they had a more expansive plan for energy. But if I'm hearing you right, if you read between the lines, all of that power wouldn't be on at the same time because it would just be switching from one different renewable thing to batteries to another thing, which doesn't seem like a great way to run a railroad, nonetheless a modern electricity grid that might need to power massive AI server farms and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so perhaps to kind of illustrate it, our artificial intelligence future, our national security and cybersecurity agenda all rely on having sovereign data centres, which are very energy hungry. But they also demand an exceptionally clean and reliable signal. So renewables are particularly unsuited to our data centre agenda, and that's where you need much more reliable, consistent power. And the problem where you have unreliability, for example, with a data centre is data centres underpin drug dispensation in ICU and hospitals. They underpin air traffic control at our airports. It underpins our ability to launch our navigation system for missiles and aircraft in the case of a war situation. So you can't have that data sitting in a foreign country. It has to be here. Now I want you to imagine what happens to air traffic control or an ICU unit if it stops working for just 10 minutes, let alone a day. And the situation is dire, and that's why you cannot have an increasingly unreliable grid while also trying to build all these core health, national security and technology agendas at the same time. We need to get back to reliability taking priority again. Otherwise, again, that technology and national security agenda gets held back.
And finally, Saul, just want to ask you, too, about some other events going on around the world. One of the things Labor has always blamed rising power prices on was Russia's invasion of Ukraine and what that did to energy prices. Well, Venezuela now, the situation there is that the U.S. might be bringing back all of that capacity for the world market. Would that wind up, is the Trump action in Venezuela potentially going to bring oil prices down? And would that have any flow-on effect to our own energy prices, not just our prices at the pump?
Well, before I just touch on the Venezuela question, if I could just please address this excuse that we keep hearing from the government that higher prices are due to the impact of the Ukraine war on gas. Today, international gas prices are lower than they were prior to the Ukraine war. So it's no excuse. The reason prices are higher today is because of policy settings. It's got nothing to do with the Ukraine war or global gas markets. But to come to your question on Venezuela, look, obviously very early days. There's quite a few pieces that would have to fall into place for Trump's ambition there to see a transition to a government which is more pro-US and to happen. Now, if it happens, though, you will see significant interest by the majors to invest in Venezuelan oil. That could see its production double or triple over the course of the next several years, and that will bring down prices. In particular, you could even see something like Venezuela leave OPEC and provide more pressure on OPEC's cartel behaviour, which again could put further downward pressure on prices. So the ambition, if it's realised, could be quite beneficial in terms of lowering prices, but there's still, again, quite a few pieces that need to fall into place before that happens.
Well, Saul, as a V8 driver, I am hoping that it does all fall in place. Thank you so much, Saul Kavonic.